Everyone. So thank you all so much for joining. I see some people I know in the chat so far. So hi Luce, hi Apurva, hi Nick, hi Jesse. So thank you all so much for being here. My name is Anaiya Singani, and I am a developer advocate over here with MongoDB. And this is actually my first live stream where I am by myself. So it's a little bit different for me today, but I'm excited to take it on and take you all through my unbiased, super fun tutorial, which is called Sip, Swig, and Search using Playwright, OpenAI's structured outputs, and MongoDB Atlas Search. So as we're just getting through everything, just a little agenda is I'm going to be going over my slide deck and just going over some basics. And while I'm doing this, just let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and where you're watching from. I am located in New York City. Woohoo! So if you're out here as well, let me know. And if you've used any of these platforms before, I see that Luce has used Playwright before. Let me know as well your experience with it. And hi, Megan. So good to see you. Also, I have an article that's already been published on our Developer Center. So if you enjoy this live stream and you would like to check that out, please go take a look at that. And I also have a video that's going to be coming out soon as well. So stay tuned for that. Super exciting. Awesome. So with all of this housekeeping out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right on in. So in just one line, what we're going to be hoping to achieve in the next time that we have together, we are going to be scraping a dirty soda website to find fun fall drinks. So we're already halfway through fall, so let's go ahead and see if we can trade out our very traditional pumpkin spice latte with something a little bit more sparkling and something a little bit more bad for our teeth. And if you're asking how exactly are we going to do this, we're going to be using the platforms I've already mentioned, but just as a rerun to mention them again for you, we're going to be using Playwright to scrape OpenAI structured outputs to figure out which season each drink from this website lands under. And then we're going to be using MongoDB Atlas Search to build an aggregation pipeline over all of our drinks and then figure out based off of ingredients that we're craving and the season, we're going to pull some drinks inside of our cluster. So it's going to be very exciting, very fun. And this is my formal agenda. So we're just going to be going over what a dirty soda is. And if you know what a dirty soda is, let me know in the comments. If you've watched the recent Hulu reality TV show, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, you probably already know what a dirty soda is. But I don't expect everyone here to have. So if you do know what it is, let me know and what your go-to order is. But we'll also just touch upon it for those who have no idea what I'm talking about right now. And then we're going to go over what Playwright is and its importance inside of this tutorial. We're also going to discuss OpenAI's structured outputs and what they are. And then we're going to touch on MongoDB Atlas Search. And at the end of this little slide deck, I have a QR code for our Gen AI showcase. So please scan it, give us a star. And if you like this live stream, just check out all the other super cool content that we've been creating. I personally find it super fun and I love what my team is up to. So hopefully you do as well. And then, yeah, so let's get started. I see that some people have no idea what it is. And no, Nick, it is not a soda from a dirty fountain machine, although I understand that the name can be very misleading. A dirty soda is just any fountain soda mixed with creamer and different flavored syrups. So some of you might not like that, but I really do. I think it's delicious. And it's popular enough that there are huge chains, primarily in the state of Utah. So if you ever go to Utah, check out Swig. I figured out that it's the home of the original dirty soda, and it's really good. The best part, too, is that it's fully customizable. And my favorite drink of choice is a Diet Coke or a Diet Dr. Pepper. Let me know in the comments what your favorite soda is as well. And my favorite dirty soda combination is Diet Coke with coconut syrup, a little bit of lime, and then a little bit of either creamer or half and half. And it's really, really delicious. So that's where Swig started. Swig started in Utah. So we're going to be scraping the Swig website. And speaking of scraping, let's just go over what Playwright is and why exactly we decided to use that platform as our Python scraper. Let me know in the comments too how many of you are Python developers or how many of you know Python. I know there are a ton of Python scrapers out there. So you're probably asking, why Playwright if you've never used it before, if you haven't heard of it. So Playwright is actually a super powerful browser automation tool, and it was built by Microsoft. So it's useful for websites that are running on modern rendering engines, and that's perfect for us because if you can tell from my screen sharing, I am using Chrome. So it allows for developers to make new browser pages. We can open up various URLs, and it even allows for you to interact with all of the elements that are located inside of a page. So the reason why Playwright was specifically chosen for this tutorial is because of how easy it is to return a website's elements, especially from a dynamic website, which is what I realized Swig's website was. And while there are a ton of other super incredible capabilities for Playwright, it's kind of perfect for our use case since our drink items are actually loaded using JavaScript after the initial page loads. So with a more traditional Python web scraper, when I tried to build out my functions, I was actually getting timeout errors or empty arrays. Since the menu items weren't embedded directly inside of the raw HTML, they were actually being loaded in later. So Playwright can really nicely handle JavaScript execution, and it waits for the content to load before grabbing the information that we need. And if this seems a little bit confusing right now, don't worry about it at all. I am going to go through my function and then explain all little bits and pieces of what makes it work and what makes it so exciting and, in my opinion, incredible. So now let's just touch on our structured outputs in OpenAI's API. So these new structured outputs just make it so that any API responses look exactly the way that the developer wants it to look. So this works by forcing whichever model we are using, and we're going to be using GPT-4o to have a response that matches the schema that is given by the developer. So this tutorial is just going ahead and using it to make sure that the drinks that we scrape from the Swig menu are actually shown in a structured JSON format. We're going to be including things like the reason along with the season, unintentional rhyming, since we want to be able to analyze the model's responses later on in the tutorial once we input all of our information into our MongoDB Atlas cluster and then run our aggregation on top of it using search, MongoDB Atlas search. So once we get more into this, I am actually going to show you the skeleton schema that we will be using that I took directly from OpenAI's structured outputs documentation website. So hopefully that'll bring you more insight as well if you've never used it before. And then lastly, of course, and I'm sure hopefully most of you are familiar with Atlas Search, but MongoDB Atlas Search is just embedded full text search inside of MongoDB Atlas, which is our cloud database service for developers. And it's super important for this tutorial specifically because once again, we will be saving our scraped data or our scraped menu items into our cluster and then creating an aggregation pipeline on top of it and using Atlas Search to do so. So this is how, this little piece right here is exactly how we're going to be able to see which drinks that we scraped match exactly what we're craving, given the season and giving an ingredient. So for example, if we want a drink that's going to match fall and we want it to have either cinnamon or apple in it, this is how we're going to be able to achieve that. So we do have a handful of prereqs for this tutorial in order to be successful. So right now, since it is a live stream and I'm going to be going through it, you don't have to worry about it. But if you do want to try this out for yourself, which I highly recommend you do, these are just the prereqs you need in order to have everything work nicely. So I am going to be using Google Colab. I'm using a Google Colab notebook. And I'm going to be showing you that in a second. And I'm just going to be explaining parts from it as we go through, and it'll be awesome. And then I have my OpenAI API key, and that's going to be very secret. So I'm not going to be showing that to you, but I will be having that on hand on another screen so that I can easily grab it. And then I have my MongoDB Atlas cluster already provisioned and ready to go. So you will be needing one of those as well. And we have a ton of documentation out there if you need help setting your cluster up. So if you do need help, just leave a comment and we'll get the proper resources. So once again, I have all these resources ready and all these components up to speed so you can all relax and follow along. And then here, of course, is our notebook link. So I expect to see a bunch more stars on our Gen AI showcase. This is where everything that we build lives for our AI part of DevRel. So please go ahead and take a look at it if you're interested in AI, if you're interested in stuff that I create or other members of my team creates. So I hope that you enjoy. And if you want to connect, you can find us in the developer forum as well. So now let's go ahead and let's actually get started with our demo. So the first thing that you really want to do when you're attempting to scrape a website, of course, is you need to inspect the website that you are hoping to scrape. So let's go ahead and check out Swig. And so this is the Swig website. As you can see, we have all of our drinks over here with all of the creamers, all of the syrups, everything, and they have really fun little names. They actually do have a seasonal favorite section, which wasn't there when I first created this tutorial about a month ago. And that's kind of the really cool thing about getting live data for demos or working with live data is it changes. And sometimes if you're scraping from a popular website or a popular restaurant chain, whatever it might be, the products change pretty frequently. So that's definitely been something that I've been learning about, which it may seem obvious, but when you're running through something kind of month after month, it's cool to see all of the new products that they have or the way that the website changes. But let's go ahead and let's right click on our name and our description, because that is what we're going to be using when we input everything into Atlas. And that's what we want. We want the name. So for example, we want like Dirty Dr. Pepper, and then we want we want to see the ingredients and the syrups that they use. We can go ahead and click inspect. And nicely, this came up because I already had it ready to go. But sometimes when you're inspecting a website, you are going to have to do a little bit more work to figure out where everything is, and that's totally fine. But there are some things that you want to look for. And with this website in particular, the biggest thing that I wanted to show you all is that everything on this page is embedded inside of an iframe. So what does this mean? This means that the contents that I want, all of these drinks, is actually located inside of another web page. And the nice thing is that I can see which web page everything is embedded inside of, instead of it just being the traditional like swigdrinks.com/menu. Everything is embedded inside of the Swig orders page. So looking at that, you can probably tell like, okay, like based on location, they're going to have different items. But instead of going ahead and picking a location just for this live stream, I'm just going to do it based off of everything. So this is also one of the reasons why we're using Playwright, actually, because it's going to help us access the information a little bit easier. So normally this will probably be hidden. I've scraped a handful of websites now, and it's not normally this easy to find the content that you want. So one of the things when I was finding this out was I had to open up and look for this selector, which was called the Ion card content. So under here is where all of the information for each drink lives. And as you can see, it's located inside of, so this is the name, and it's located inside of a P tag with a text H3 class. And then we have our P tag with our text B2 class, and that's for the description, which is just Dr. Pepper and coconut. And we're not really going to care about the calories, but we can include them because it won't affect anything. Cool. So now that we have this in mind with the classes and where we have everything kind of nested underneath, we can go ahead and we can start building out our actual scraping function. So I like to mention the selectors. And when I was building this, I put the selectors along with where I found them over to the side because it's going to come into handy. So just keep that in mind. You're going to see it in a couple seconds. But this is the notebook that we're going to be working with. And I actually ran this very recently. I ran every single, I don't know if you can see at the bottom, but I ran this about 20 minutes ago. And that's the super, super fun part, once again, with working with live data is that sometimes things change. So I was able to see like seasonal favorites and new drinks such as hot chocolate that were added in. Earlier this season. So I'm seeing all of your comments, and let me know if you have any questions as we go along through this. And yes, hopefully it's zoomed in now in this notebook. Let me know if you want me to zoom in the notebook a little bit more. And my dad is here. So hi, Dad. Nice to see you. And I appreciate that you all love this example with the drinks. They're really fantastic if you've ever tried a dirty soda. Perfect. So of course, our first step is to just install Playwright itself. So this can always be done with just a simple pip statement. So I already ran it earlier, but I'll show you the output that it got satisfied and that it works. And then let's go down here. And because we're using a notebook, we have to use async. So that's because we're using Google Colab. But if you decide to try this out locally through an ID of your choosing, then you can use sync. And we can put some resources as well that kind of tells you the difference between things like async and sync or headless and headed. But now let's go down to our appropriately named Swig scraper. So this is going to be our scraping function. And let me know also if it's too zoomed in, if you'd prefer to see the entire function at once, or if you want to see bits and pieces. I am going to be running through it and then showing you all of the drinks that I loaded in about 15 minutes ago or so. So you'll be seeing that. Perfect. Let me see. I saw a comment. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Nick, for letting me know. Okay, cool. So yeah, we have to use headless mode since we are using Colab. And then once again, I'm using Chrome. So I'm going to be using my browser with Chrome. And then we have to make sure that we have the correct URL. So when I was first actually doing this tutorial, I kept trying it with the original Swig URL, and of course it wasn't working, but then you have to access it inside of the iframe. So if that's one big takeaway, if you've never scraped a website before, or if it's something that you're looking to do in the near future or not so near future, definitely take your time inspecting the web page. Also keep in mind that most web pages are going to be different because they're built by different people. They're maintained in different ways. So every single website that I've scraped so far, and I've only done 3, it's been kind of like a little puzzle to figure out where the selectors are that I need, where all of the elements live. So I highly recommend, taking out that time, like a good amount of time, and really going through all of it, seeing what information you want, finding that information, and just seeing the way the website works, getting really familiar with it. Otherwise, your scraping function will get more complicated. And the reason why it might look complicated now, but the reason why this scraping function is a little bit more basic is because I took the time to actually inspect the website and figure out where everything lived. So then we also want to just let the page load, and that's because once again, JavaScript is in the background. So we just have a little timeout of 60 seconds, and then we want to wait for our selector, which is ion card content. So that's just saying like let the page load and don't do anything else until you see that that selector is coming into play, because that's where all the data we want to scrape is. Then we know that all of the elements, once again, are located inside of that selector. So it has all of our names, all of our descriptions. So that's just where we're essentially just asking Playwright to give us a list of all of those elements. And then we're just going to loop through it and take what we need. And this is where we're saying specifically for the name, it lives under the p tag with this text uh, H3 or like third heading tag. And same with, or sorry, class, and same with the p tag text B2 class. And then we're just taking out the inner text because if you remember from here, the ion card content, it has a lot of information. We don't need all of that. So once again, if anyone's lost, let me know. I'll do my best to explain. And then from there, we just put everything into our list that we're calling menu. And then we're closing our browser just so that it knows that we're done using resources and we can have all of our drinks. So let me zoom out a little bit here to show you all. There should be about 100. Sometimes the reason why I wanted to show this with you all and let you know how many there are, sometimes it changes. So sometimes when I run it, if the JavaScript loads too quickly, sometimes I can get like 5 results back and it just takes like loading it a couple times. That's definitely something that I'm going to look into after this live stream because I found it out about like 30 minutes before this live stream. So when you're working with live data, things can change. Just keep that in mind. Perfect. So now we have all of our drinks from our Swig website, and we can go ahead and we can move on to our OpenAI's structured outputs part. So I'm just making sure right now that my key is saved somewhere safe, and I do have it on hand. And you will need to spend, if you're trying to recreate this tutorial, you will need to spend a little bit of money for your OpenAI API key. I believe they give $5 for free at first, so that definitely should be enough. But if you are a developer and you're interested in artificial intelligence, I highly recommend getting an OpenAI API key because it really changes the game and you can do a lot of really cool stuff. Perfect. So our first step, of course, is to just install OpenAI once again with a very simple pip statement. And then we want to go along and we want to define our imports. So here we're just importing OpenAI, we're importing JSON, and then we're importing getPass. And getPass is important. And I've really been liking to use getPass in my tutorials recently because instead of hard coding everything in, you can just use getPass and you can put your keys in there. So I think, especially when you're working with a notebook, it makes it really easy because it prompts you. Just as you can see here, it just prompted me for my key. I pasted my key in and then I was ready to go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to make sure that our menu is properly formatted for OpenAI and for our model to fully understand, what's going on. And so we have to do this by putting all of our drinks and all of their descriptions into just one string so that we can put it into our prompt. And then the prompt part is super crucial, very, very important. Depending on how you ask and the way that you ask, you will get different results. So you have to be very specific. You cannot be vague at all. You have to be direct with what you are looking for, and you're going to kind of see that with my prompt. It took a couple renditions to figure out what exactly I wanted to get from our model, but this prompt worked the best for me. But first, of course, because we can't upload a CSV file, we do want to just format everything into one string. It just makes it a little bit easier for the model to understand. So our prompt is pretty fun. It's just saying, that you are the best soda mixologist that Utah has ever seen. And then this is a list of sodas and their descriptions or their ingredients. And then we enter the drink string. So that has all about 100 drinks just formatted into one string. And then I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to ask Please sort each and every drink provided into spring, summer, fall, or winter seasons based on their ingredients, and give me the reasonings as to why by stating which ingredients make it best for each season. So, for example, cinnamon is more fall, but peach is more summer. And then once again, I just said sort every single drink provided, because as I was building this out and as I was working with this, when I would run it a couple of times, it would give me sometimes like 10 drinks or like one drink for each season. So I realized that I had to put in like, please sort each and every drink provided. And if there's any AI specialists out there that are maybe better with prompts than I am or have more experience with prompts, if you can give me some ideas for how to become better at prompting, I would really appreciate that as well. Still learning always. So this is what I figured out worked best for me. And hopefully it works well for you too. Perfect. And then, so we just want to go ahead and generate our prompt using the menu we scraped. And then we want to put together our structured call. So this is taken from the documentation, and I actually have the skeleton code open right here. And let me know how this looks, if you need it bigger at all. Um, but I'll find the link. I'll put the link as well. So if you want to see this OpenAI article with all the information about structured outputs in the API, you'll be able to see it too. So this one is just telling us, extract action items, due dates, and owners from meeting notes, and it's showing us just the skeleton code for how they did it. And they have their structured output with the owner, the due date, the description. So I kind of took that and I made it work for my use case, which was, you're the best soda mixologist that Utah has ever seen. And then I put in my prompt, and this is the model that we're using as well. But you can use whichever model that you're most comfortable with. I know a lot of people still like to use GPT-4 or GPT 3.5. So whichever one floats your boat. So then what we're going to be doing is, we have our seasonal drinks and it's in a type array. And then here we're going to have each drink, which is essentially the name. And then we're going to have the reason for why it's perfect for whichever season. And then I'm going to also make sure that we have a field that specifies the season. So after we run that, it'll give us, this full response, which honestly, for another use case is very helpful. It just tells us some more information about what we were running and what we're using. But for me specifically, all of my drinks ended up in one single string inside of content, which is totally fine, because then I just went ahead and I extracted that, as you can see here, and then I just printed it out nicely so that I have it for MongoDB Atlas. So let's go ahead and let's look at some of the drinks, and then let's look at some of the reasons along with some of the seasons. So I already know that the first couple are going to be fall related because from the website, it had a seasonal favorites. So I know that those are like the more fall related ones, but it's cool too that our model and OpenAI was able to figure out that those were fall related, and use that same kind of inference to see that, like the drink Autumn Blush, because it has apple and vanilla cream, it's a fall vibe reminiscent of apple pies and fall flavors. And then the cinnamon cider, the double cinnamon and apple combination, is quintessentially autumn. But let's scroll down and let's see some other seasons. And I'll scroll. Let's say here, it's cool too because they do give me some with all seasons, which if I wanted to take that out, I could go in the prompt and specify, give me a unique season for each drink, which might have been a better prompt to use. But, like you run stuff, you learn. So I highly recommend, if that's something that you want, if you want to replicate this and you want that specific, I really recommend playing around with the prompt and seeing what cool stuff you can come up with. But yeah, so it has some like spring fling. I guess that's kind of in the name, so we can ignore that. But like Big Al, light and coconut convey a light, refreshing experience ideal for hot summer days. So that one is summer. And the founder, coconut and lime, scream summer with a creamy delight suitable for tropical weather. So that's pretty cool. And we can look at a lot more like cherry bomb. Cherry is a festive flavor fitting for both summer and winter holiday vibes. So that's like summer, wintry. So cool. So as we can see too, I'm just scrolling through it, but it has about the same amount that I scraped, which is awesome. So now that we have all of them, we can actually go ahead and we can store it into uh, our MongoDB cluster and then use Atlas Search to figure out which drinks we specifically want. And before we go into part 3, I'm just going to go over and look at the comments and see if there are any questions. And there aren't any questions right now, but please let me know if there are, and I'll keep keeping an eye on the comments just to make sure. So of course, our first step is to just install PyMongo, and that can once again be done with a very easy pip statement. And then we want to go down here, and this is where we're actually inserting all of our fall drinks into. So we just want to set up our MongoDB connection. So that's just entering your connection string with your username and your password. And then you can name your database and your collection anything that you want. I went ahead and I just named my database Swig menu with my collection being seasonal drinks, and then I inserted everything. So once they're inserted, let's go ahead and let's take a look. We'll just refresh it to make sure that everything's up to speed. And once again, let me zoom in a little bit. So as you can see, we have 80 documents, and that kind of makes sense. That tracks because I believe that there were about 100 drinks, but some of them are repeats. So for example, they had one of this, like I believe it was what, autumn blush or cinnamon cider. That was part of the seasonal drinks, but then that was also part of, like a make your own or a whatever one of the other little sections was. So there are some repeats. I recommend to, after you're running your model, run it a couple of times. And then I personally took the times where it had the most outputs from. As I was saying, sometimes it really depends on your prompt. So I highly recommend checking that. Cool. Can everyone see my screen? Let me know if you can't. But this is our cluster. And if you need help, once again, with creating a cluster or provisioning a cluster, we can, of course, help you out with that. We have a ton of information in our developer center, but you can also connect with us on our forum and we will walk you through it. So we have all of our documents. So now let's go ahead and set up our Atlas search index. So let me zoom out and then I'll zoom in so you can see. So this is our cluster and this is our collection. We have our database, our collection over here, and then this is where Atlas Search lives. So we go over here and we click it. Then we go down here and we hit create search index. Let me zoom out. So now we're over here. We have different options. We have a visual editor, a JSON editor, and then we have Atlas Vector Search, which if you have all followed along with some of the other tutorials I've created, I have been using vector search pretty frequently. So that's really fun as well. If you haven't tried it out, I recommend that you try it out. So we're just going to be using the visual editor. And then I'm just going to keep the name as default, but I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click on seasonal drinks. Let's go next. And then, so over here, I can see that for field mappings, I have none right now, but I want to go in and I want to refine my index. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to add a field mapping, and my field, I want it to be with reason. And we can add that. Perfect. And once this looks good, let's do save changes. Awesome, create search index. So that will take about a second or so to search. And while that's working, I'm going to take a look at the comments again. Yeah, let me know if y'all are enjoying this. I see some of you are. Skylar, I agree. The dirty soda trend has been taking up a ton of space in my brain too. I'm waiting for them to open one in New York City. Hopefully they do. I feel like there's going to be a lot of hype around it. Um, but yeah, and let me know too if this tutorial is making any of you feel like you need to go out and try a dirty soda. I know watching the TV show, I was craving one. The first time I ever tried it was actually a couple of years ago on a DevRel offsite, and it was delicious. And I believe it was a Dr. Pepper with half and half in it, and it was way better than I expected. So definitely like stuck in my brain, and then watching this TV show made it stick in my brain even more. But really, really good. Um, a little bit bad for my health because now I feel like I am craving it. Like I was craving it this morning when I was running through the notebook, getting it all set up to show y'all. So definitely not good. I feel like I should wait until afternoon um, to drink soda, but whatever. I'm an adult. Cool. Okay, so we have our index ready to go. So now we can go back to collections and go over here to aggregation. Or this actually is just using an aggregation pipeline. So we can go add stage. Stage one, we want to do search. Perfect. And now I have it living in right over here. So this is just saying fall. So this is just saying like, show me all of the drinks that have fall located in them. Go here. And this is giving me a sample of 5. But once again, these are the ones that we saw, right? We saw Autumn Blush. We saw the Heartbreaker. Those are cookies. They're part of the fall, but they don't really count. We saw Dr. Spice. And then, oh, my scroll seems to not be working. Okay, that's fine. You understand the gist. So now let's say that we want to find a drink that's very specific. So let's say that I want to find one for, let's see, yeah, like apple and fall as well. So that means that you need a compound. Cool, and it gives us one document or one, which is Autumn Blush. So that uses apple and that's fall. Let's see if we can find any with cinnamon. One document, Dr. Spice. So the inclusion of cinnamon gives it a warm, spicy flavor, ideal for cold. Perfect. So this is essentially my tutorial. This is my tutorial, actually. And I had a ton of fun creating this, and hopefully you all had a ton of fun watching me take you through it. But we touched upon some really fantastic platforms. We got to take a look at one of the most famous dirty soda chains, Swig. So hopefully you all will try this out for yourself, and then let me know if if you were able to make it through, if you have any changes, if you have any feedback. I would love to hear it. And please go ahead and take a look at our Gen AI showcase. Hit us up in the developer forum as well. We are always there to help you out with any questions that you may have. But yeah, so I would love to connect with you. And I have a ton more really exciting content coming out as well. So stay tuned for that. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.